10 wrestlers WWE will bury in 2017. Enzo Amore. The tandem of Enzo Amore and Big Cass, who was formerly known as Colin Cassidy, has been incredibly popular ever since their early days teaming together in NXT. There is no better trash talker in the entire industry right now than Enzo, and Big Cass is superb in the role of backing up his partner's words between NXT and their time on the main roster. Enzo and Cass have been teaming together for several years now and getting huge reactions from the crowd. Unfortunately, that hasn't done much for their win record. It would seem that WWE sees this team strictly as a sideshow to get the crowd all fired up, because while few can outwit them verbally, they can't seem to stay on a steady winning streak. Rumors have swirled for a while that the company has considered breaking them up, and if that ever happens, you can bet Enzo Amore, who rarely seems to get a win, will be the one left in the dust. Dolph Ziggler. For more than a decade it has been an uphill battle for Dolph Ziggler to achieve even close to the amount of recognition he deserves in WWE. His technical skills are insane and the crowd has always been into him whether he was playing a heel or a babyface, but Vince McMahon was never sold on him as a huge star. The one time it looked as if Ziggler might finally get an opportunity at the World Heavyweight Championship, an injury put a stop to all of his momentum. And despite a few runs with the Intercontinental Championship that was the closest he will likely ever get to glory, Dolph Ziggler is destined to always be the ultimate underdog in WWE. He has received quite a bit more screen time as of late on SmackDown Live since the new brand extension went into effect, but it seems like it's one step forward and two steps back, as usual. No WWE fan ever doubted that Dolph Ziggler is one of the company's greatest assets in years, but Vince McMahon has never taken a liking to him and we shouldn't expect that to change in 2017. Apollo Crews. When Apollo Crews was making his debut in NXT, it was made into a very big deal. To believe the hype, it seemed as if Crews was going to be the man to launch NXT to the next level. However, after only a brief time in development, it was clear he wasn't clicking too well with the audience and he was brought up to Raw and SmackDown in 2016. Since then, it seems as though it's been a struggle for Crews just to get time on television. Even following the brand extension, with so many WWE superstars getting opportunities to shine who didn't have that chance before, Apollo Crews is still floating around with not very much to do. The man is incredibly agile and he's big enough to have an impressive power game, but that bland smile and lack of an edge will see to it that, unless something is drastically changed about his character, Apollo Crews will be buried in the coming year. T.J. Perkins. In 2016, the WWE Network was receiving a huge pat on the back due to the popularity of the first ever Cruiserweight Classic tournament. Wrestlers from all over the world who were under 205 pounds were invited to partake in the competition, and some of WWE's greatest matches of the year took place on the weekly show. The action in the tournament was absolutely breathtaking and WWE got plenty of new talent to sign to contracts, including the man who won it all and became the first Cruiserweight champion of the new era, T.J. Perkins. It seemed as if WWE was incredibly high on T.J. Perkins, as following his title win he was featured weekly on Monday Night Raw, which is where the Cruiserweight division as a whole was drafted. But Perkins seemingly fell out of favor when only a brief time later he lost the title and was used much more sparingly. If WWE is sincerely not on his side, somebody better get the shovel ready for TJP. Cesaro. Ever since debuting for the company years ago, it has seemed as if WWE has had it out for Cesaro, known by his real name, Claudio Castagnoli, on the independent circuit. He built a massive following and brought those fans with him into WWE. With his size and athleticism, Cesaro seemed a perfect fit for Vince McMahon's mainstream wrestling product, but apparently, he lacked charisma and marketability, and this has seen WWE cutting him off at the pass every time he's been on the verge of something special. Cesaro has been involved more recently in a rivalry than a tag team with Sheamus. While that program has been a bit of a hit for Monday Night Raw and the pair have managed to become the Raw Tag Team Champions, Cesaro and his fans are no doubt growing tired of his constantly being held back from the main event scene. WWE isn't likely to change its stance on him anytime soon, so it may not be a very bright year for the Swiss Superman. Braun Strowman. The members of the Wyatt family have been frequent victims of the machine. Fans were utterly captivated by Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper and Eric Rowan from the onset of their time on the main roster in WWE, but loss after loss has rendered the entire unit as essentially laughable. So when the massive Braun Strowman was added to the mix, it wasn't as if he had received a rub of some kind. In fact, he was stepping onto something of a sinking ship. Evidence of this was seen when the brands were split again and Strowman was drafted to Monday Night Raw all on his own. His star really started to shine brightly with a string of dominance that continues to this day, but if history tells us anything, it's likely that this is merely Strowman's moment in the sun. Strowman may be working the World Championship picture soon, but don't expect him to stay there. Nia Jax. The emergence of Nia Jax in NXT was something incredibly special for what was then still referred to as the Divas division. Aside from the brief time Awesome Kong, or Karma, was under contract with the company years back, Jax was the first plus-sized woman to compete for WWE in recent memory. She broke the mold of what it meant to have the trademark WWE beauty, and it was exactly what an evolving women's division needed. Nia Jax has not been pushed as a stereotypical monster devoid of any human qualities, but she is indeed seen as a powerhouse. Nia will no doubt tear a path through the main roster women's division on her journey to capture the Women's Championship. But it's highly unlikely WWE will make much meaningful use out of her once she's finally been cut down by a top babyface, making her situation quite similar to that of Braun Strowman's Sami Zayn. So often we're presented with a WWE superstar who is so incredible in every possible way that there is no clear explanation as to why he or she isn't the face of the company. Sami Zayn is the most recent example of this. He consistently wrestles some of WWE's most amazing and exciting matches, he's got a unique look about him, and he's talented on the microphone to boot. What's for the company not to like? It's not as if Sami Zayn has seen no success since coming to the company. The former independent wrestling star had a memorable journey to the NXT Championship before an injury sidelined him for quite a time. Once coming to the main roster, he's seen plenty of screen time. Although he's been used inconsistently as it relates to the importance of his storylines, Sami just seems like another classic example of what WWE sees as an underdog, and it will probably always be that way. Bray Wyatt. As we've already discussed, the Wyatt family has not seen the best of times. WWE's resident horror film stable has captivated the audience over the years but never been able to break through the barrier that keeps them from true main event status. If there's one person whose shoulders this lies on more heavily, it is obviously the leader, Bray Wyatt. Bray has been seen as having the potential to be a modern-day version of The Undertaker, but his frequent losses have severely crippled his mystique. The 2016 draft saw Bray Wyatt and his family wind up on SmackDown Live in the brand extension, and they have, as a result, seen a much more nuanced and better-paced presentation to their story. It is hoped by many that this will finally allow Bray to eventually bust the WWE Championship picture wide open. But only time will tell, and if history gives us any clue as to how it's all going to go down, things don't look good for the Eater of Worlds. Sasha Banks. 2016 was a landmark year for women's wrestling. The sexist diva term was retired and WWE finally began to recognize its female athletes as a valuable part of its wrestling show. At the forefront of this movement has been the group of women known affectionately as the Four Horsewomen, and perhaps the most popular of the four has been Sasha Banks. Sasha has become the darling of women's wrestling fans, a true megastar in every way from her in-ring ability to her fun character. Sasha and Charlotte Flair broke nearly every glass ceiling there was left to be broken in WWE throughout the year. But something that became increasingly evident was that Vince McMahon does not see Sasha Banks as the dominant star the crowd sees her as. She did rack up a few brief runs with the Raw Women's Championship during her rivalry with Charlotte, but Charlotte is the company girl now, and it's unclear if Sasha will be put on the back burner going into 2017.